Hello and welcome to a special edition of AVIXA TV live from Upstream here at the beautiful QE2 Centre in London. My name's Ben, I'll be your host for this broadcast and it's a pleasure to have you wherever in the world you're tuning in from. We've already had a packed morning of sessions, but we will get some recaps along the way during today's show, and thankfully the rest of today's agenda will be streamed live, so stay tuned for details on how to join that stream at the end of this show. But before that, we're going to hear from some of the leading experts in the broadcast and AV field, and it's my pleasure to welcome first Charlie Mertz from Wesco Anixter. Charlie, thank you for joining us.
Ben, good to be here. Proud to be a sponsor of the event today.
Thank you very much indeed for doing so. Can you give us a quick, just tell us a little bit about your role at Wesco Anixter?
Yeah, sure. I'd probably just start by saying Wesco Anixter, we're a supply chain logistics expert distribution company, truly global. And I run the AV practice for the UK and Europe.
Fantastic.
We're an overlay over the entire business, but our mantra is we build, connect, power, and protect the world.
And a good mantra it is indeed.
Indeed.
So what's the current landscape with regard to the AV broadcast convergence trend, and how is that informing Wesco Anixter's roadmap and strategy?
Well, it's interesting. Broadcast is something that we've kind of fallen into naturally. So we've seen the convergence of AV and IT over the past 5 to 10 years, really ramp up pace. But the technology that's underpinning AV in particular these days has a more broadcast focused feel about it. And the way content is being consumed, broadcast quality is of paramount importance to enterprise AV, all the way up, driven by that millennial culture of TikTokers, YouTubers, Zoomers. We're all used to Teams, we're all used to Zoom calls these days. And, that people being used to that experience at home want something better going forward when they're coming back to the office. The return to work, it's happening. It's happening slower in some parts of the world than it is in others, but it's definitely happening, and technology is underpinning that.
Yeah, absolutely. And whenever there's a sort of a convergence and a disruption, that's always a bit of a catch-22. Kind of one happens and then the other happens, and it kind of goes around in circles.
Sure.
What would you say is the main thing that's driving that disruption and convergence that we're seeing?
Well, for us, it's discovering that we have a new customer. So within the AV IT world, traditionally AV was always done by, there was an AV team, right? And it was always an afterthought. I've heard that quite a lot this morning, right? Now it's come into the IT world. The customer is the CIO. It's the C-suite that's really making these decisions, and that strategic nature of wanting positive outcomes for their businesses has really driven this, and we've seen it with the AV side of things, just traditional Pro AV. We've seen it with commercial AV, the driving of mass notification and the communications, and the digital shift. Essentially, is the way we like to call it. The digital shift from traditional ways of communicating to everything is an IP endpoint, and that's what we do.
Yeah, fantastic. In terms of other things that you do as well, data centers are obviously a big part of that too. For those who aren't that familiar, what are the main sort of functions of data centers? I mean, is it primarily about the storage and the distribution, or are there other things as well?
Primarily, yeah. It's all about it's servers storing ones and zeros, right? And what that content and what that 1 and 0 does, it's becoming more and more complex, more and more diverse. Interestingly, we're seeing a ramp up across the world of from the we call them hyperscales, so the likes of Google, Apple, Microsoft. We're seeing ByteDance who do TikTok. There's pretty much a data center going up once a week, once a month, very, very quickly, in order to cater for the data needs, and a lot of that is streaming.
Absolutely. And I think as well, I mean, interesting you should mention some of those companies, the larger companies. Often when people think about data centers, they think about these kind of huge monolithic creations. Does it always have to be that way, or can they be scaled to kind of like any use case that
if I was a data center guy, he'd say, yeah, they have to be really, really big and really, really cool, right? But and believe me, there are some really, really cool ones. But again, listening to some of the guys here and some of the information, as I started out in broadcast doing video on demand 25 years ago, and I looked after essentially a server room where we had a rack of what were then state-of-the-art N-Cube servers, right, and BT Lightstream playout devices. And it's changed completely. And nowadays it's a case of if you've got an RJ45 connection and you've got a connection to an instance within the cloud, you don't know where that is. That could be co-located, multi-tenanted, or it could be a single entity. It's bandwidth at the end of the day, and the data center providing that bandwidth backed up by sapping power from the national grid.
So, in turn, obviously, we've spoken a lot about the disruption, convergence, and the change in the industry. What are the next 2 or 3 years looking like for Wesco Anixter in terms of the roadmap, and is that having a lot of effect on it? Oh,
absolutely. I mean, within Wesco Anixter's global AV position, we have 3 initiatives. First one is that return to work piece and really helping companies expand how they use technology, not just in a meeting room environment, but the guys talking about the virtual effects studios. That's a big deal for business coming up with those hyperscale customers. Their internal communications, external communications. I mean, Wesco Anixter, we actually use production house in the States for our internal town halls. And that's all VR based. So that's going to become more and more prevalent, more important to us. Another initiative we're focusing on command and control, and again that breaks out into the broadcast world. And thirdly, it's broadcast itself. So you'll see later on when I'm on stage a case study we did with Disney over in Manhattan, a project called Project Galaxy, and everything that we do working with the partners, technology underpins it, and we make sure that technology gets where it needs to be, on time and on budget.
Good stuff. Well, thank you very much indeed for joining me. I know never long enough, but if people want to get in touch, what's the best way to contact you and kind of have those conversations?
Sure. If they want to go to www.wesco.com, they'll find all about the Pro AV team. But if they want to get in touch with AVIXA, you can give my details out. I'll give you permission.
Perfect. We'll do that. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks, Charlie.
Thanks, Ben.
Now, next up, we join today's conference host, Hannah Shelwell, for a recap of some of this morning's sessions. So let's take a look.
I'm here with Hannah Shelwell. She's one of the hosts of Upstream, and she's here to talk about some of the highlights from this morning's session from London. Hannah, how are you doing today?
Yeah, really good. Thanks, Naren. It's great to see you.
There's an absolutely packed agenda at this year's Upstream. What are some of the sessions that you're looking forward to in the morning agenda?
There's so much going on, but I think for me, to be honest, the standout session is going to be the first one of the day with Sarah Cox. So she's the founder of Neutral Human, and she's the company's entertainment technologist. Also, of course, the convergence of broadcast and Pro AV are really going to be running through all of the sessions, Naren. And Sean Wargo is going to be speaking with Olga Nevenchanga, who's a senior analyst at IABM. And they're going to be talking about broadcast and about Pro AV and really debating the challenges, and discussing where are the opportunities right now in the industry at such an exciting time.
There's another session that looks interesting for people who are interested in virtual production, but also have hesitations due to the cost or the technology that's involved to get them up to speed. Could you tell me a little more about this one?
Yeah, sure. The question on that is investigate invest or ignore. So the discussion's going to be about how to best approach this emerging technology that I think from the outside for many people can feel quite complex, potentially opaque, and it is of course incredibly fast moving. So we're going to have some great insights from Marcus Saunders, he's the Associate Director at UAL, and also from David Gray from David Gray Consulting. I think they'll really be able to share some real wisdom in this area, and I think hopefully put some minds at rest as well.
Well, Hannah, our audience is watching this AVIXA TV live stream about midday during Upstream, and they can join the event remotely right after we're done with this show. What are a couple of sessions that viewers can look forward to in the afternoon?
Yes, that's right. I really hope everyone will very much join us at that time. We've still got a great lineup in the afternoon. And I think what's really exciting is some of the team behind AVIXA TV are going to really be talking about the planning, the technology and the resources, all the requirements really it takes to put on a top-notch digital event like Upstream. We're going to be talking about the good, the bad, maybe a bit of ugly, everything in between, and that's going to be on a panel with Deborah Jones. She is the AV and IT Sales Manager at QE2 Live, which is based at the Queen Elizabeth II Centre, where we're having Upstream again this year. She will be joined as well by Sam Minish from AVIXA TV, and also a representative from Ross Video. So that's going to be super interesting.
Thank you so much for filling us in on some of the discussions that are happening at Upstream. We're looking forward to seeing you up on stage for the afternoon sessions, which viewers can actually watch by joining a Zoom link that we will provide at the end of our show.
Great, thanks Naren, great to see you. Bye for now.
Thank you very much indeed, Hannah. Well, I'm joined now by our next guest, none other than Mr. John Sparrow from Clearcom. John, thank you so much for joining us today.
Ben.
How are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, not bad, thank you very much. Can you tell us a bit about your role at Clearcom, just to get started?
Yeah, so I'm a pre-sales support consultant, if you like. I work from home in the south of England. I support the EMEA team with anything that's technical in the sales cycle, so quotations, demonstrations and so on. Mm-hmm. Also help with the exhibitions and also consultant outreach, which is why I'm here today.
Fantastic. And you're kindly sponsoring the conference.
Yeah, we are a
today,
sponsor here. It's a very, very good event so far.
Excellent. Had some good conversations?
Yeah, well done to AVIXA for putting it all on.
Oh, thank you very much indeed. No, that's great. So let's talk about what we're here to talk about today. So cloud-based products and services, let's start with that. So we're seeing a lot of that at the moment. So what are the main drivers of this trend and what kind of advantages do you think that those things afford?
Okay, so Clearcom have been working with IP networks for many years, both internally to a building and site to site. So it helps our customers to be able to talk between two venues or two areas or two buildings. Moving to the cloud obviously makes this even easier to a degree. You're working with equipment that's not on your premises, so you don't generally have to invest. You can normally move it from like a CapEx to an OpEx. Mm-hmm. So if you've got an event, you can say, I want to hire something or I want to use something for a short period of time. So you can spin it up and spin it down again. Mm-hmm. So moving to cloud services, it also means that the cloud people actually look after all the infrastructure and all the hardware. So you haven't got to do so much work there, which really helps.
Yeah, good stuff. And you kindly said about the event that we've got today. How important do you think these kind of events are to sort of meet up and talk through the implications of the AV broadcast convergence, as it were?
Yeah. So we were here last year which I think was the first time that this Upstream event was run in London, and it was very good for us then. It was good meeting the AV consultants. Our market, I mean, we talk about this broadcast market. But our market is much wider than broadcast. We do comms for marine, we do comms for space launch, Formula One, MotoGP, as well as broadcast, as well as AV. So anywhere you need a critical comm system with a team of people that need to talk to each other instantaneously is where Clearcom really fits. So coming to a meeting like this or an event like this means we can talk to the end users and the people that are in the field, if you like.
Yeah,
so
sure.
It's very important.
Yeah, and I think sometimes as well, people might see you and sort of think, oh, I want to talk to them, but I don't really know where to start. I don't know what can you do to sort of like allay their fears and sort of like say, just kind of, what information do you need from them just to kind of get a feel for what they're trying to do?
But it is kind of a black art, but you can sort of start from the very basic: how many people want to talk to each other, and where are they? You know, and can you use wired or wireless? Do you want to use a network, or do you want to use a DEX signal, or whatever, however you want to talk to each other? And then we can look at our quite wide portfolio of products and bring it together into a solution, which is what I try and do for the EMEA team.
Yeah, and being in the, you know, and having these kind of conferences and having you standing there, people can come face to face and just have a chat.
It's great.
You know, you're a friendly guy, I can attest to that. anyone you know wants to have a chat, that's good. Clearcom have always been a manufacturer of hardware, and that works with a core matrix in a room somewhere, for example, which is obviously totally viable. But I understand that you're also in this the cloud-based and software as a service space too, as we've mentioned, right?
Yeah. So the Clearcom product range, as you say, is based on hardware. But for the last quite a few years now, we've had two products, Agent IC and Station IC. One runs a intercom app on your phone or your iPad or tablet, and one runs on your PC or your Mac. So that product is already software-based. That's available as a monthly or a yearly contract, but that's currently on our hardware platform. Okay. So you start from there, which is where we sort of started with our software solutions.
Fantastic. A lot of people are doing audio and video in the cloud at the moment, but not so much the general comms in the cloud. What would you say the challenge is, and how are kind of Clearcom blazing a trail in that area, if you will?
Yeah, so effectively we're one of the first manufacturers of the intercom side of the world that's actually using a cloud-based intercom, but it uses our technology which we designed to work on our hardware. And what we've done is taken that mixing engine and put it into the cloud. So it's established product. Latency is an issue. We obviously need something to work immediately. We can't have delays. So when you're working with the cloud, you have a connection up to the cloud and back again, or wherever the cloud is. So we've got 6 data centers around the world that you can connect to. You can choose your local data center for your shortest latency. But if you're working with another branch in America and you're in Europe, you can still go up, down, across and back down again. So latency is critical to keep it as low as possible, and quality. You need high quality audio, which normally doesn't work with latency. You get more quality, you get more latency or delay. So we use something called an Opus codec, which gives you very, very high quality sound as well as low latency. So by combining that sort of expertise, plus enabling it to come back to the ground, so you've got cloud, and then we have a product that brings it back into your local intercom system, so we can bring it back to your premises system, and that will enable you to have the best of both worlds, hopefully.
And I mean, as usual, we're running out of time. There's never enough time to do these things, as I said earlier. But I know that people traditionally have been using hardware panels. But I know that you have your Gen IC.
Gen IC. So I haven't mentioned that yet. Thank you.
No worries.
So Gen IC is the name of the cloud-based products, and it means generate IC basically. Gen IC is backed up by something called Skyport, and Skyport is the admin portal. So our partners allow their customers to buy access to Skyport, and then they take control over their intercom by configuring the keys that they want. But it's different from something like WhatsApp, where you just chat to each other. The administrator can control who talks to who, and log them in, log them out, so you can take users off the system and so on and so forth. So that's Gen IC and Skyport. To bring the hardware into it, at the moment it is based on our software products, Agent IC and Station IC. To bring the hardware into it, future developments will bring along our FreeSpeak 2 wireless belt packs, which are DEC-based, and hardware panels, and that will become available on Gen IC as well, as what we call an endpoint these days. So it's somewhere someone sits and talks to somebody.
Good stuff. And speaking of which, if people want to come and talk to you and find out more about the products, what's the best way to do so after this conference? Okay, so you can find me on LinkedIn, John Sparrow. You can look up www.clearcom.com as the company web address. We are American as a company, but we are based in Cambridge, so we've got UK office as well, so you're not necessarily having to wait for the time zone to talk to the States. Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you very much indeed for joining us. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you very much. Now we're going to hear from the wonderful Sarah Cox at Neutral Human as she revisits her presentation from earlier today. So over to you, Sarah.
Well, I'm joined now by Sarah Cox. She is a technologist at Neutral Human. Sarah, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks, Mark.
You're going to be presenting at Upstream in the morning, and when our audience is watching this video, it's going to be about midday, so they won't have a chance to have seen your presentation. You're going to be talking about navigating the future of digital experiences. Could you tell me a little bit about what does that mean? What are some of the high-level topics that you're going to be touching on as a part of this presentation?
Yeah, definitely. So this is a huge topic, but we definitely need to continue a dialogue around the industry about the convergence of these technologies into what we can now kind of label as the experience economy, if you like. My talk is very much about what we've seen over the last 5 to 7 years, particularly accelerated during COVID. That's sort of when XR and virtual production technologies really came onto everybody's radar, when there were no other ways of transmitting content and sharing our messaging. A lot of people turned to that extended reality technology to do that. And it was a natural fit because as an AV industry, we have all the technology available from LED to media servers to camera tracking. So it was a natural evolution for those companies to gravitate that way. So 2024, everyone's a broadcaster. This is why the term broadcast is really defining an end result output rather than an industry, because a corporate can now be a broadcaster. There's going to be so many ways, a YouTuber, there's so many ways we can now create content. And these technologies, these experiential technologies that have come out of the sports broadcast industry and the ICVFX industry are now being applied in many other different scenarios, which is really exciting.
Another one of those technologies, though, that is evolving rapidly is AI, and you're going to touch on that a little bit as a part of your presentation too. Talk me through a little bit about the ways that AI is impacting this convergence as well.
AI is a little bit of a red herring. It's a sort of misnomer in that it's not going to come in and replace as a job role. But the AI technologies are certainly there to impact our processes and creation of these experiences. So we're looking at technologies like Gen AI, using generative AI to better create virtual environments, for example, content backdrops that just speed up that chain. The other area is probably around the processing tools. So a lot of what we do in content creation in our industry is the process of which we get to that lovely, playful content creation moment. And we spend a lot of time in the technical constructs like remodeling, retopologizing, building out different parts of the processes in creating content. And AI tools are being leveraged now to do that.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much for taking a minute to fill us in. Really looking forward to hearing your presentation at Upstream. And thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate the time.
Great. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks again to Sarah Cox there. Now it's my pleasure to be joined by Jack Horry from Ross Video. Jack, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
How's things?
Very well, thank you.
Excellent. Now, we worked with Ross Video at the Infocom show recently, in partnership for the AVIXA TV booth that we had there. And I know while we were there, we were using more of the traditional sort of things that you use. But what have you got kind of in the pipeline? What's the most kind of exciting area of innovation that you're working on at Ross at the moment?
So, those of you who don't know Ross, we provide a wide range of equipment, mainly for the broadcast space, from switches, graphics, camera robotics, and we have always had this thing where we've been trying to bring everything down into a sort of smaller footprint. So we've had this system called hyperconverged, and we're trying to do that with all of our products, just trying to make it more accessible, simpler to use, and something value for the investment that's there. So where we were doing traditional stuff at the AVIXA TV booth at Infocom, we were also looking at making things simpler for the sort of AV side of things.
So, and your role specifically at Ross, what are you doing at the moment?
So I'm a product manager of a meeting control system we call Cory, which is designed as a sort of interface on top of all of our equipment that just makes it really easy to use. It makes it so a subject matter expert for the meeting can operate the meeting and put it into a recordable state, broadcastable state, rather than having to understand how a vision mixer works, how graphics work, and all that training that goes with it. It's not to take away from those positions that have done that in the past, but it's to try and make it more accessible for when that sort of crew isn't available.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, Ross kindly sponsoring the Upstream event here that we're currently at, and we're here for the broadcast and AV convergence piece. So I'd really like to get your thoughts on what are the kind of main areas that really anchor those two areas of broadcast and AV.
Well, it's really interesting because there's a lot of synergy between the two. We're all still trying to do the same thing. At the end of the day, we're producing content. This is content. And what you really want to be doing is concentrating on craft and making sure you have craft to do that. Make it really simple to sort of broadcast that in the background. So enabling people to spend more time on the craft rather than have to work about technicalities of it is really the goal.
Mm. And in terms of the what broadcast can bring to the AV broadcast convergence, you talk about the craft there. Do you think it is all about the content, or are there kind of more nuanced areas?
I think at the end of the day, it's all content. You need to have something for someone to watch it at the end of the day. But it's all about making everything really highly efficient in the background. So that is the concentration. The star of the show is the content. We should be a sort of in the background thing. It's not. It's a huge industry that needs support and understanding, but it sort of has to have that sort of, we're in the background and no one understands what's going on behind it. But there's a huge, underswell of what's needed to happen underneath.
Yeah, definitely. And how important is the accessibility of the content as well, would you say?
Well, it's got to be accessible. I mean, at the end of the day, after COVID and the pandemic, the global messaging is now global. We work in industries where we don't really have the London office anymore. We have these big global companies, and we all start exchanging ideas that way. And some of the remote things have helped do that, but there has to be a level of trust in the equipment and the process going into that to be able to trust the output of that, which is really where it becomes accessible.
And I know that you came into Ross Video as well. Like when you first joined the company, it was more to concentrate on the sort of like the automation side of things. So it's just to jump over to that quickly, what value do you think that automation adds, and what is the sort of the future of automation in that sphere? So
this again goes back to the craft. It's having that stuff on screen rather than having to churn the task of I have to push this button exactly when this happens, and I have to push this button exactly when this happens. Trying to reduce the churn tasks and bring those forward. So the automation product was a broadcast product called Overdrive, which runs most of the newsrooms around the world. And it was a really fascinating piece of how to bring things together to make things simpler. And originally, it's sort of seen by people as a killing the craft and things like that. But what it's doing is actually extending the craft. And instead of having someone just pushing a button every time that someone says play, you've got that person creating content and adding to that content. And they're doing more channels. They're doing more output. And the same thing is happening in the AV world.
And do you feel like the automation side of things frees people up to be more creative in a sense, because those kind of more mundane tasks and those things you can pre-program, hit a button, and then work on something else?
Absolutely. To go back to my product for a second, what it does is when you ask to see somebody on camera, we look at all the data that's part of it and use all that data to bolster that production. So it knows who's sitting in their chair. So we can obviously put graphics lower third up without any impact from the person operating it. And it's more accurate that way. So the trust is better in the output. But it then allows them to go off and do other things that's more, more valuable to the production.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, thank you very much indeed for sitting down with me. I really appreciate it. If people want to find out more about Ross Video, what's the best way to get in touch?
So our website, rossvideo.com, is a font of information of lots and lots of products. And you can find me on LinkedIn. My name's Jack Horry, Horry. Yeah, we look forward to talking to anyone who needs some of our help.
Perfect. Thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure.
Next, we're joining our gracious host, Deborah Jones, from the QE2 Centre for a closer look at this iconic venue. So let's check it out.
Well, Deborah, thank you for hosting Upstream at the QE2 Center. This facility is the perfect location for an event like Upstream, so we wanted to give our viewers a little behind-the-scenes peek at the facility itself. So, Deborah, to get us started, would you mind telling me a little bit about the QE2 Center, the history behind it, where it's located, things like that?
We're very happy to be hosting the AVIXA Upstream event. I agree, it's a perfect location. We're right opposite Westminster Abbey. We have views of Big Ben. It's a government-owned venue still, so we're very, very close to Parliament. And that means that we attract a lot of government speakers, a lot of ministers, and a lot of VIPs actually, and royalty too.
So talk to me a little bit about why is this the perfect venue for Upstream? Obviously, there's a lot of in-house capability for streaming, broadcast, like you mentioned there. Talk to me a little bit about some of the capabilities of the facility itself.
So we have around 32 lettable spaces. We run around 400, 500 events a year, and they are great and small. Our largest space takes maybe 1,200. Obviously, that's not enough. We're not like those great big convention centres in the States or in Europe. So what we do is we stream. And since pandemic, of course, streaming has become ever more popular and ever more sophisticated with ever more bandwidth. So we've got a perfectly adequate pipe. But I think we're unique in terms of the complexity. We can run a little video conference in a room for 20 people. We can also be doing this broadcast where we're doing it all over social media and to maybe 1,200 people, and then maybe across the States.
Another really interesting facet that I found about the QE2 Center was the emphasis on sustainability. It's something that you all are taking very seriously. And in fact, I was just reading about a beehive on the 4th floor. You want to talk to me a little bit about that and some of the other sustainability measures that you all have put in place?
Well, obviously the honey is delicious. My pots went. I'm a real fan. I even have it in my coffee. I'm a real fan. But that's only one part of our sustainability culture. Obviously, our food is all sourced reliably within 25-mile radius, and all our food people are really, really clever with sustainability. We have LED lighting, house lighting, and we have LEDs everywhere else. We also bring it in when we're going to do award ceremonies, but we have projectors in all our rooms as standard, and they're all laser projectors. As soon as we could, we turned over to a laser so we don't have to recycle them out.
Deborah, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you partnering with us for this AVIXA TV live stream, and it's been great getting to learn a little bit more about the QE2 Center. So thank you very much for your time.
You're most welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Deborah. Now, for our final segment of this special broadcast, I'm delighted to be joined by Marcus Saunders and David Gray. Gents, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
If you could please give us a little intro about what you do. I know you ran a great session earlier on, and we're going to have a little recap of that. But if you could tell us a bit about what you do in your day job, Marcus.
Thanks, Ben. So I'm Associate Director of Technical Resources at the London College of Fashion, which is part of University of the Arts. There's a lot of stuff in that sentence. But so over the last 6 months or so, I've been designing, building and delivering a ICVFX virtual production volume that's part of the Fashion Technology and Textiles Institute. And yeah, really that's where I met David, and we worked together on that project. So over to David.
Fantastic.
My name is David Gray. I'm from a company called Virtual Pixels, and I spent the past few years in the golden era of large-scale in-camera VFX or virtual production, as we've been talking about today. And also today we've been trying to define, what is virtual production. But primarily specialised in the kind of film and episodic industries where people are trying to interface with these technologies for creative means, whether that's creating more collaboration on set, or can we make decisions earlier by interacting with digital twins, another big buzzword of the day.
Absolutely. Now, did you manage that in your discussion earlier to define what it is? Did you think you managed to demystify it a little bit?
We gave a definition, and I think because it's such a nascent industry, there's a lot of terminology out there, and there's a lot of people potentially calling the same things different words. So we kind of teed up some resources where people can if we can reach a shared definition at least, that'll make it easier for people who have no knowledge to at least get a foot in the door and understand what's being said, because there's a lot of terms.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing is the scale at which you're working at, because there's all the way from a Hollywood blockbuster Hollywood production that's on a massive stage, on a sound stage, right down to a small green screen studio in a university or a venue or So we tried to frame the discussion around perhaps how you could start there and then build up to a much larger implementation.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and that sort of leads on to my next question, which was about what are we looking at in terms of like the spectrum of installs, from the very small to the very large, but also the things in between that people may not be aware of that they can do if they have the resources and they have the need.
Yeah. Well, we saw Marcus's own family has used their own an iPhone, an iPad, a little bit of green screen from Amazon to create things on the kind of very low scale. Then it transitions all the way up to massive, 75 meters by 9 meters wraparound LED. Obviously, very expensive.
Yeah.
In between, though, we've got smaller green screen studios that could be broadcast based. You've got smaller LED walls. But I think actually the thing to take away is it's normally the same technology driving these stages. So it doesn't matter what window into that world we're taking, if you want to call it that way. It's a window that's green screen, it's a window that's iPad, it's a window that's a massive ICVFX stage. You can get on the tools and start developing those skills and actually pre-visualize, you can build a digital twin of this room if you wanted, and then pre-visualize, what's my event going to look like in this space. So the tools are accessible and you don't have to buy all the super big expensive toys to start.
You don't. You can start with a phone, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was part of the conversation that's really important is to understand the principle around merging this digital world and the physical world at the point of the camera. And I think there are ways that you can do that literally with with an iPhone and the LiDAR that's built into most of the phones now, and some nice software. So the starting point, as David said, can be a 14 quid green screen cloth and an iPhone. But then sort of the next step up from there, if you've got a green screen studio in your organisation, is to add some camera tracking to that camera so that you can extend sets. So that's the XR principle. And then beyond that, you get into the LED walls and the much kind of larger scale investment in terms of having infrastructure and capability and capacity, which I think one of the things that was also a theme, and it's been a theme through the day actually, is how you build the capability and capacity in people and in the understanding and the knowledge. Because obviously, as you start projects like this, I certainly needed to work with consultancy and outside of my organisation to get that really deep knowledge that you need and experience that you need. But then you start thinking about how you gain that ability and capability in-house. And you can start, very, very humbly, YouTube videos out there that will teach you Unreal Engine. You can start looking at how to learn motion tracking, camera tracking. All of these resources are there. You just have to look for them.
And that again, as you say, that was something that was really important and sort of like piqued my interest is, you can install this stuff. And I know that you've had an incredible install at the university recently, which I was lucky enough to see firsthand. But it comes down to the skills of the people that run it. Would you say as well that if you are going to be kind of gradually ramping up your operation, that's a good way to gather those skills along the way?
Yeah, I think we were talking about this earlier, and I think the key skill is problem solving. It's how are you able to bring to bear that knowledge and understanding in one way is important, and having some access to some knowledge is important. But really the thing you're going to find as you start to build an XR space or an ICVFX space is you have a lot of problems to solve. And that could be just about how you build the thing in the first place, but then it moves into how do you start to operationalize when you're using something like Unreal Engine for ICVFX in actual practice. It takes a team of people to run a space like that. It can do. You can run it, simply, but actually, if you're running a full production, you need a team. You need to build that team. And I think for me, I had to really learn rapidly what would be involved in operationalizing a space like that.
Yeah, the Google will stop at some point for you, unfortunately, with these kind of very new workflows, and so will the manual. So that problem-solving ability to just look at a problem and be like, okay, I've tried that didn't work, what's the next steps? That's a huge part of what we look for in people.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a good point. We sometimes laugh and say, oh, what did we do before Google? You can Google anything now. But then this new technology is something that is almost ungoogleable past a certain point. So it's important to, and that's going to be about my next question is doing the research.
Just to say, it moves so quickly. We're saying 3 months. In 3 months, in the space of 3 months, ICVFX and virtual production as a discipline changes. It changes enormously. There's new terminology, there's new techniques. I was looking at something a couple of days ago about splitting up the inner frustum so that you can run that on different render nodes using SMPTE 2110. And that's like weeks old, right? And I think, oh, that's exciting. But a lot of people won't find that exciting. But I'm just saying it's something that moves quickly. So I think it's not snapshot learning. You don't get to a point that you can do something. It's something that's continuously evolving over time.
And in the short amount of time we've got left, I'm really keen to find out, and I'm sure people watching us are as well, from the client side and from the sort of like the consultant side, what makes good research and what makes a good bid, a good customer, as it were?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've seen a lot of bids in the past few years, and I think one pitfall that people fall into is getting very technical very fast. It's natural. We're all geeks. We want to like find the latest toys, but actually that level of detail is not useful. Just work out what your use case is, and in Marcus's case, that use case was, I don't know. Actually, it's an R&D space, so we made a system which would be more flexible. If you're more broadcast based, if you're more film based, that's going to be really useful.
It's requirements, isn't it? Understand your requirements and also understand essentially why you're setting out on this mission in the first place, and then work with people who really genuinely understand the subject matter.
Good. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, both of you. Thank you, and for running this session too, and for joining us at Upstream.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well,
that's all from us here at AVIXA TV. Thank you for joining us, and please be sure to stick around for instructions on how to join the live stream, which will be covering the rest of Upstream here at the QE2 Centre. But for now, a huge thank you to all our guests today and to our hosts here in London. And for AVIXA TV, I'm Ben Barnard, and we'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.